Don't go. When I read the letter you wrote me, you made me mad my mind. When I read the words that you told me, you made me sad, sad, sad. But I still love you so, I can't let you go. I love you. Oh, baby, I love you. Oh, 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 oh. Every breath I take. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, every move I make. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, baby, please don't go.
Trying to stay in front of Jake Melton. Jackson Hayes will protect it effectively. Look at Jackson run. Look at Jackson protecting. Back door. There's the
And how's it going, folks? My name is Sean Militello, and welcome to Off the Dome Sports. Here where we talk everything about Louisiana sports, Saints, Pelicans, LSU, even a little UL Raging Cajuns, and so on. We're here on a Tuesday night. We're going to talk about some LSU football tonight. Obviously, we're going to talk about everything that went down this weekend. And Monday, eventually got Brian Kelly as head coach. Isn't that awesome? I know some of y'all are pumped up for that, huh? So, Brian Kelly is the new head coach for LSU. Notre Dame Brian Kelly. Now, I do have a special guest coming on at 9 o'clock. He may join sooner. Either way, he could join as soon as he wants. But his name is Preston Guy. He is a staff writer for TigerBait.com. He's going to come on and talk Brian Kelly with me. And I'm going to kind of get his insight on what he thinks of the hire and how does he feel since he covers the team and he's a big fan of LSU, obviously. How does he feel about Brian Kelly being the new head coach for LSU? I mean, you started off this thing, true or not. We don't know if it was true or not. Lincoln Riley was apparently the guy, big game hunting, Scott Woodward. That was his guy starting off, right? Supposedly. We don't know if that's true or not. There's been reports saying that he was never offered or hardly talked to. Was reports saying he was the guy and USC outbidded us. I don't know. There's a bunch of people going both ways with it. It's 50-50. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you the truth because I'm not behind those scenes. So you go from Lincoln Riley, Lincoln Riley. He ends up going to USC. Gets a massive offer over there. Now you got people thinking, shit, what is LSU doing, man? Making it seem like LSU's scrambling a little bit. They're in shambles. They lost their guy, right? That was the story. That was the media story. But, it kind of seems like it was, Brian Kelly might have been the guy all along. So We got my guy Preston. He is in waiting. Let's see if you good to go. Yep. Okay, he is good to go. I'm gonna bring him on. How's it going, Preston?
Oh, how's it going, Sean? Just been a really slow, casual walk in the park the last 72 hours for covering this LSU beat.
Yeah, I could imagine that you've been busy all day today and yesterday. What time did the official hire came out? Did it came out like
Yeah.
what at 7 or 8 o'clock last night?
Well, the official hire was technically announced
Oh,
this morning, but
right.
of course, it caught me in the middle of Christmas tree shopping with my wife, which I had put off for a while because of this LSU coaching search and because of covering the team. So it was right at about 6:45. We were out shopping for a tree, and I looked up and I didn't see what a single message had, but I had 50 plus messages after checking my phone 5 minutes before, and I said, "All right, Alyssa," this is my wife, Alyssa. I think I might know what this is. LSU might have found their guy, but let me check these messages. And of course, that's exactly what it was. So we had to load up the tree and get rolling, do our live show. I just finished my Tuesday live show just a few minutes ago, and it has been a whirlwind ever since. Because LSU didn't just hire a coach; they hired a big name, a very impressive hire for LSU.
Certain so, and I really appreciate for you coming on, taking time out of your day to come on here and talk LSU football with me, and then the big hire of Brian Kelly. But yeah, man, I was the same way. I was actually cooking dinner and on my pellet grill. I was cooking some steaks, and then all of a sudden I just see breaking news on my phone, and I was like, "Yep, that's the hire. That LSU finally got their guy," and I ended up overcooking my steaks because I actually went live on my phone just to go live to get people's reactions. But yeah, that was crazy times. Now, so the first question I was going to ask you, what do you like to hire?
Yeah, I mean, I do like the hire. It's a big name guy. He's won 300 some odd football games. Let me see if I can. The cliff notes are so long on him. I almost have to pull him out just to track everything he's accomplished. Unlike a lot of other guys like Lincoln Riley, I kind of had those memorized. But we're talking about the winningest coach in college football right now. He's the most wins. He won 2 national titles at Division II. He's been to the playoffs twice, went to the national title another time. Of course, he's 0-3 in those games, but so was Lincoln Riley. In the last 5 years, he has a very comparable resume to Lincoln Riley. In fact, maybe a little more impressive than Lincoln Riley. He's 54-9. What stands out to me is he did not have a single loss to an unranked team during that stretch of the last 5 years. 5 of the 9 losses, I'm going to go ahead and throw in Cincinnati this year because they did lose to the Bearcats this year, went on to the playoffs. So more than 50% of his losses over the last 5 years have been to playoff teams at Notre Dame. So when you're talking about consistency of your program, one of the problems for LSU, everybody points to Bama. And I get it. You want to beat Bama. But look, let's be honest. Coach O didn't get run out of town because he couldn't beat Bama. It's everybody else. It's Auburn. It's Kentucky. It's, Missouri. All these teams that are very winnable and you should beat at LSU. So I would immediately expect Brian Kelly to come in and have success in those games and be able to get to recruiting. Quite frankly, he's a much more proven and better coach than Les Miles or Ed Ogeron were at LSU. So, yeah, I really like the hire. A lot of people talk about, the schedule at Notre Dame not necessarily having beaten a ton of quality teams. Well, I went back and looked. This year, he beat number 18 Wisconsin. He beat number 1 Clemson last year. He beat number 19 UNC. He beat number 18 Virginia. He beat number 23 Navy, number 12 Syracuse, number 24 Virginia, number 7 Stanford, number 14 Michigan, number 17 LSU, number 14 NC State, and number 11 USC. That's a number of top 25 wins in the last 5 years alone. He's got 300 other victories during his career. Very impressive to me. what he's been able to accomplish. And the big question is LSU a job that can elevate him to that next level? And my guess is that if Ed Ogeron and Les Miles can do it, I'm pretty sure Brian Kelly will be able to do it.
For sure, in all due respect to Les Miles and Coach O, at one point, they were good coaches, especially Les Miles. At one point, he was a good coach. The game kind of passed him by, and then Coach O obviously caught lightning in the bottle and all that good stuff with 2019. But yeah, if those two can do it, then I think Brian Kelly can most certainly do, and consider what all you just said about the wins. I think he's the second most winning coach in college football that's still active. Obviously, I think Nick Saban's probably number one, right?
Not until you throw in those Division II wins.
Oh, okay. Wow.
He's actually got more wins than Nick Saban.
That's crazy. Because
second at the FBS level.
He won an FCS national championship, didn't he?
Division II.
Okay.
He won two of them.
Wow.
He won back-to-back right before taking the job at oh my goodness, it's not even Cincinnati. But yeah, the job he took before Cincinnati, which I'm blanking on right now. He won at Grand Valley State. He won his last 2 years, 2002, 2003 national titles. So proven winner at a multitude of levels, 31 years coaching. Yeah, very impressive body of work.
For sure. And then there's another question I wanted to ask, kind of just what you brought up a little bit. Do you think Scott Woodward kind of views him as a Nick Saban type coach? Is that the guy that he wanted all along? And that's the type of guy he wanted, instead of like a Billy Napier who's still fresh, even though he's built the program at UL. I don't think he would have been a good fit here. It's just because he's just so fresh. I think Ford is actually a perfect spot for him. I don't think he could have handled LSU, but Brian Kelly, on the other hand, he's proven and more experienced. So he's proven he can, he's a CEO basically,
Yeah. Brian Kelly. And look, it's funny. I just talked to a bunch of Notre Dame insiders, and that word CEO has a bit of a cringe factor for LSU fans because of Coach Ed Ogeron, who, of course, they said, yeah, he'll be the CEO of this team and it'll work. And it didn't. It worked for a little bit, but if you want consistency in your program, I mean, you can't have a head coach who knows nothing about X's and O's or how to coach football or how to develop a quarterback. And Coach O admitted he didn't know anything about that. He was relying on coordinators, which works when you have Joe Brady. It works when you have Dave Aranda, but then when you have to go find rookie coordinators and they're learning on the job and you can't tutelage them, and if they can't figure it out, that's it. You're going to go 6-6 those years. So Brian Kelly called plays frequently throughout his career. In fact, even the first half of his time at Notre Dame, he was the offensive play caller. So he it's not like he's unable to call plays. Now, is he fancy, opened up offense, spread option attack? No, it's more of a pro style, but they will go to the air. It's not like they're mundane tossing the ball. He's taken a little bit of criticism for being slightly more conservative than we see oftentimes in this modern age of football. But he can call some plays, kind of like a Nick Saban. He is kind of in that Nick Saban mold, where he knows X's and O's. He's called plays before, but he prefers to manage the team, make good hires, that kind of ordeal. And he's a no-nonsense guy. And that's what LSU really wanted, because quite frankly, the last two coaches have been cartoon characters. Well, LSU recognizes they're at a point where, hey, their facilities are top notch. The athletes around the area, they have the best recruiting setup in the country. They've won. Look, in terms of winning championships since the BCS era started, LSU's number 2 behind Alabama with 3. So LSU's trying to set itself up to be the grown up in the room. And I don't think Scott Woodward wanted a cartoon character, fun coach like Lane Kiffin, who even yesterday was trolling on Twitter, saw the buzz about Lincoln Riley going to LA, and he tweets out a Louisiana license plate. He knew what he was doing. He was just there recruiting, but he thought it was funny as all get out. Well, that's not what, that's all fun and great to follow, but Scott Woodward wanted the grown up in the room, and that's what they got with Brian Kelly. Yeah, it is kind of a Nick Saban type coach. And more importantly, it's the coach that hopefully will guide LSU in the post Nick Saban era. Nick Saban says he can coach to 80, but can he really? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, that's another good question to bring up. Is Brian Kelly is 60 years old. Does that bother you any?
It wasn't my favorite thing about him. I'm gonna be honest. Now, it depends on the 60-year-old. Some guys bring energy all the way into their 70s. It is a little bit of ageism to say 60 is too old to be a football coach, because I don't think it's too old. It just depends. I think Ed Ogeron at 60 was a little tapped out. I think he was ready to call it quits and retire. Of course, 60 is, in normal careers, that's when you start to hang it up and enjoy the rest of your life instead of, grinding until you're a little old man on the sideline. So it just depends. Yeah, I thought one of the great things about Lincoln Riley was he's 38, and that's a lot of youth and energy for sure. But how much energy does Brian Kelly have? Well, I suspect that he wouldn't have taken a new job like LSU that is a tremendous challenge unless he was really excited to come along and do it. So I don't necessarily see that as an issue. It could play an issue in a few years, but I think right now he's probably feeling pretty good, and I don't think he's too old. No.
And honestly, kind of had no choice to go kind of that age route, because when you think about it, the two candidates that were, somewhat young and that could possibly handle a job was Lincoln Riley and Billy Napier. And obviously those two went separate directions, and one of them we weren't interested in at all, and one of them, we might have been interested. Who knows? I don't know what to believe anymore on that story.
Right.
So it kind of forced us to go old because we needed somebody like you said, of that pedigree that could take us to the next level and be the grown up in the room. I think the LSU boosters and the brass and everything, they're tired of seeing these LSU teams be so talented and win and tease us with a national championship in 2019, and they're tired of seeing us. And in other years, they just flat out shit the bed. Like they're tired of that, so they do want a Nick Saban type of guy who's all business and who's going to hire coaches every single year, even if he loses them. But my thing is, I know Brian Kelly is a very good recruiter. The thing is, can he recruit Louisiana? I know that he has a good relationship with Walker Howard. In fact, Jamie Howard came out and said he's a Nick Saban type coach.
Yeah.
So how do you see him recruiting in Louisiana? Because obviously, he's not from down here. He's a northern Midwest guy. He's from Massachusetts, but he's been coaching in the Midwest for a while now. How do you think he can adapt to recruiting and locking down the state of Louisiana?
Well, let's be a little clear on this. Louisiana kind of recruits itself. I talked to a bunch of recruits, and one of the questions I ask is, man, do you have any LSU gear around you? And I very often will get, it's on all four walls. A lot of these kids grow up loving LSU, especially now that LSU's been kind of dominant for 20 years, basically these kids' entire life. I mean, a lot of these kids weren't born when LSU won its championship in 03. So all they know is a dominant LSU program. So now that fence is kind of up, it's more about just keeping it up, and the handful of guys, don't let them go out of state. Don't let just fight for them. I think that's not really the issue. You're going to get 12 out of the 15 top talented players in the state, and of those players, let's put it like this: since 2000, LSU has had 87 players that it recruited from the state of Louisiana that got drafted. That's 15th in the country by itself. Yo, what? The talent LSU pulled just from Louisiana is the 15th most talent in the country. That's not even adding in the out-of-state kids. That's insane. So LSU does that. The difference is you got to start going into the Midwest. You got to start going into Texas. You got to get some linemen because this state, I've talked to coaches in the state and I can't figure out why. I mean, a bit of it is like, the culture and, that kind of stuff, but it doesn't produce a ton of offensive linemen, although 2022 is the exception. That's one of the things about these next two recruiting classes that's exceptional about Louisiana is it's producing talent in positions Louisiana usually doesn't, with Walker Howard, with Arch Manning. We've got, 4 offensive linemen in the fold for 2022, and you got to keep those boys. So I think he'll do fine recruiting Louisiana players. The hope is that he'll be able to go out of state and he'll be able to get a more well-rounded recruiting class. In fact, I've told people with these recruiting classes, I'm almost done looking at their 4th ranked, their 5th ranked, top 2, top 3. Because look, man, Ogeron pulled in top 5 classes almost his entire time. And the one he didn't, it just happened to include Joe Burrow in it. I mean, so, and it's not to say that stars don't matter, because they do. Don't get me wrong, because each individual's player's rating matters, and the schools that finish in the top recruiting rankings typically win more football games. And the scouting's gotten good enough to where you can kind of trust those ratings. If he's a 5-star player, it's pretty much a 50-50 chance that he'll be a good football player. It's a pretty high rating compared to like a 3-star player who you might have like a 1 in 10 chance. So what I'm getting at is it's about where is the talent coming at, because a lot of these recruiting classes had 2 3-star offensive linemen, like 2 guys who were 3-star rated, and you needed a bunch of them to come in. And guess what? Both those 3-star guys don't pan out, and boom, you go over for a year. So you have holes all over your offensive line. It's about structuring a class that's more well-rounded. You need 5 offensive linemen every single year. Your recruiting class, you get 25 offers, you should be able to go field a football team for the most part. I mean, I'll cut you a break on a kicker and a punter and a long snapper, but you should be able to put a starting 22 out there with every single recruiting class. That I genuinely believe that. Maybe some wiggle room sometimes. Maybe you can get away with 4 offensive linemen, but you pretty much need a quarterback. You pretty much need 5 offensive linemen, 4 defensive linemen, 3-4 linebackers, 5 DBs, that kind of ordeal, to have a balanced roster when you get there, and use your 3 extra spots to fill your needs. Like if you had a little bit extra attention to receiver, bring in some extra receivers. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in terms of recruiting. But I'm going to be honest, during this process, I've even gone as far to say, I don't care about how good of a recruiter was, because Ed Ogeron was a world-class recruiter, and you saw what happened at LSU. No matter who's at the helm at LSU, they're going to bring in good recruiting classes. The talent grows on trees around here. It's about developing the talent.
I most certainly agree. Is one of the questions that a lot of people bring up, and it's exactly what that should be told to them people who have questions like that. I think, Brian Kelly, with his scheme and his offense, he will bring in some offensive linemen. He's going to bring in some tight ends as well. Right. I know we have starting to get better at recruiting tight ends here at LSU, but you're right. The offensive line recruiting wise has been a little weak. And honestly, you did said you could field up to 25 with scholarships. You also, you can add 5 more with through the transfer.
The +7 rule, right?
What? Oh, it's 7, huh?
It's 7? Yeah. Well, it's just you got to work the math out. Sometimes you can take away from there and there, but yeah, you can add an extra 5. You had it right.
So yeah, I mean, you just sack it right. I mean, there should be no excuse to field the whole roster, and not have much holes unless there was just a bunch of injuries. So my final question is before we get on out of here, because I know I got you a little past in what I said I was, but I do appreciate it a lot for you coming on this show, taking time. It says, so do you think Brian Kelly will ever win a national championship with LSU? And if so, how long would it take? I know it's kind of a premature question, but I mean, it's a question to ask.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about questions like that is it's such an unreasonable shot in the dark at this point that nobody will ever hold it against me for making a prediction. So, yeah, having no information about who his staff's going to be, what kind of recruits he's going to go after, all that good stuff. Does he bring in Marcus Freeman? Does he end up getting Tommy Rees like he wants to? How long are those guys going to stay on staff? None of it. I haven't seen any of it, but based on the amount of talent in Louisiana right now, the 2022 and 2023 recruiting classes is the most talent in a 2-year cycle in Louisiana history, including the number one quarterback in the country, Walker Howard, including next year's number one quarterback in the country, Arch Manning. I doubt you get both, but you'll get at least one, I think. By the time those cycles are done, by the time every 2023 player is done playing at LSU, if he hasn't won a national title, I'll be shocked. I'll be surprised. I do think he will win a national title by then. Of course, it depends. It's hard. I mean, if nothing else, yeah, it could be 1 year where you have an excellent team and Alabama has just got a juggernaut like 2011. That 2011 LSU team very well would have won the national championship in most years, but that 2011 Bama team was a buzzsaw, so maybe runs into that. But I do believe Brian Kelly within, 7 years, I could definitely see him winning a national title at LSU. And the thing you got to understand, the last 3 coaches have all done it at LSU, and 2 of them weren't really well respected as coaches.
Exactly. And that was the point I was going to bring up. The last 3 won national championship and within a short amount of time. So I think if they can do it, I think Brian Kelly most certainly can do it, especially with the talent.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on, Preston. So tell everybody how they can reach you and get your content.
Yeah, look, so I'm big on Twitter at pguy_77. I do every other form of social media out there, Instagram, all that good stuff. But I appreciate it if you go check out the Tiger Bait YouTube channel. It's a growing channel. I do the LSU football fix every Tuesday night at 8:00. We bring on a guest. I do some film breakdown. I try to give some more higher level, insightful LSU stuff. If y'all enjoy podcasts, y'all go give us a try. We are quickly growing as a channel. We had our show last night for Brian Kelly, have over 25,000 views already. My show tonight is well on its way to get, about 10,000 views. And it's been a very exciting season where we've invested in studios and technology. So I'd appreciate y'all giving us a subscribe there. Check me out on Twitter. And of course, tigerbait.com, the website I do write for, covering all the games and recruiting. You can go check us out there. If you're really into recruiting, we get real good insights and things of that nature. We have free and premium content, only costs $1 to give it a try. But it's $99 a year after that. And it's really good value if you are into that hardcore recruiting. If not, I'll see you Tuesday nights at 8:00 on the LSU Football Fix.
Yep, there you go. And like I said, Preston, I appreciate your time. It was an honor to have you on the show, and maybe we get something going on in the future.
All right. Thank you, Sean. You have a great night.
All right, you too. Appreciate it, man. And you heard it there, folks. Mr. Preston Guy of TigerBait.com, staff writer. He also has his own shows on Tuesdays, so y'all go check that out. He's always the guy I keep track of on Twitter. I've always tried to enter his Twitter spaces all the time. He's a great guy when covering LSU, and he knows everything. So as you just seen, he put out a good show, and I really appreciate that. I am trying to get a Notre Dame guy. I have a guy. He's from Review and Preview, Mr. Thomas. We're going to see when he could come on. He's going to give his perspective on everything from the Notre Dame side, and maybe he can give us some more insight of what Brian Kelly is really like from a Notre Dame point of view. So you see, Preston, that was an LSU point of view, right? So let's get a Notre Dame fan point of view. I'm hoping we can get that going either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So check us out till then. Yep, this is Off the Dome Sports.